Hey, boys and girls, weather report for June 15th, 2021. And before anybody says anything, the description has a whole bunch of links. There was a Standing for Truth debate with a guy named Marshall last night. There was an after show. And then we switched subjects to a Josh Bowen praise Jay Pasek sort of controversy. And there are four links, 1, 2, 3, 4 links for that, including Josh Bowen's new book.
There were basically 2 links to Jay's. He did kind of a part 1 and part 2, talking about how praise just slurred and slimed all over Josh Bowen. Praise is just an idiot. He has no brain cells. I don't think he can even register on any of those machines where you have to hook electrodes to your head. And oddly enough, the accusation was that Josh is guilty of ethnocentrism and thereby anti-Semitism. And just like Otangelo demonstrated a horrible reading comprehension. And oddly, on PSF, Pandora's something, it's a pretty good atheist channel. A day or so ago, they interviewed Dr. Josh about his new book, Atheist Handbook to the Old Testament, and talked about that specific subject, and Josh kept cautioning everybody, don't find yourself guilty of ethnocentrism, which I thought was pretty ironic.
Yep, that link is in there too. And then we've got a link for John Perry. Is that from Stated Clearly? Is that him?
Stated Casually. He's got 2 channels, Stated Clearly and Stated Casually. And I think this one appeared on Stated Casually.
Okay, and Richard Dawkins talking. And the next link I got is Sabine Hossenfelder and Luke Barnes. He is a Christian talking about fine-tuning on the same channel that James Tour and Lee Cronin was on, I believe. And he's always got really good interviews. And then I have 2 lava videos from Iceland that are pretty cool. One is boiling lava, and the other one is really fast lava. So anyway, so that covers the link so far today. So
I put a link to the stream that me and Rational Empiricist and Jackson Wheat did yesterday in the private chat. If you want to,
that one.
It was a good stream.
Yep, I'll throw that in there. And that was, you guys were talking about what?
We were talking about phylogenetics and creationists like Kent Hovind and some Answers in Genesis stuff, and just evolution in general. It was, but it was in genetics. It was an interesting stream, and I'm glad that I brought Jackson on.
Yeah, it was really interesting. Lots of
he's a lot more qualified than I am.
Yeah, you guys got into a lot of stuff. So yeah, that and I think it was only like it was only an hour long, so it was a nice.
It's only an hour, so
it's a good bite.
Yeah.
Educational. That's important. What's going on in chat? What else is going on? Let's see. So we got about 50 different directions we could go in today. Andrew wanted to do an SFT rant. He has a list.
I have.
Wait a minute. We got to mention the shit fairy, Lil Pee-Pee, logical, probable, and plausible, or whatever the fuck his name is. Basically, we have to point out that he's an idiot. We really triggered him yesterday, and then he went on Praise's channel. He was really proud of what he did yesterday on this channel. You know, I wonder if we could ever get the guy in when he's not like just raging hot. But of course, that's been happening to him a lot lately, hasn't it? On like when he came on Praise's channel, just screaming at everybody, and I think the guy needs a chill pill or something. But anyway, he's a grifter, and I
That
still think
reminded me of how Mr. Batman was when he came on my stream. He was just like, drank like 12 Red Bulls before he came on, and just
yeah. I think he's a grifter, and I still think his origin story has fucking holes in it. So
anyway. Yeah, well, he loves to brag about himself, and even in his sob story about being at the hospital, he's like, "Oh, the doctors were so impressed that I drove myself there." Like, okay,
yeah. Lots of people have aneurysms, and lots of people die from them, and some people get to the hospital and they fix them. And I don't know. But he claims his burst. I don't know. I'd have to see evidence of that. Usually when they burst, you're fucked.
Yeah, you're dead. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It was the biggest. It was the best burst. Doctors told me it was a special burst. So anyway,
it was a world record for the biggest, gayest aneurysm they'd ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah, God. Yeah, I have an aneurysm story. I should probably tell it backstage, though. Anyway.
Hey, Speed, if LPP shows up today, do you think I could, I'm not saying he will, but like if he does, maybe I should challenge him to a debate on phylogenetics.
If he shows up in chat, yeah, he'll probably show up because we mentioned him. He's kind of triggered. He's driving around now in his whatever the fuck he drives around in all the time. And he's listening to us. I'm pretty sure.
U-Haul van?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So anyway, call out to him.
We got to bring Brain Bug and not Brain Bug. I'm sorry, I was just reading this thing. Immutable and Leophilius in to debate fine tuning.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, I watched that Sean Carroll video about fine tuning that was linked yesterday. It was excellent.
And then we have Natty Boy 2 in the chat, and we want to someday I want to talk to him, just him alone, about his really crappy argument for dualism. And maybe he can. And what I'm hoping is that I'm wrong about it being a really crappy argument, and that he has something really interesting that he can, like, some really interesting part of the argument that I'd missed. And I'm hoping he can come in sometime and explain that, but not today. We have too much to do, right? Like, we have to get to Andrew and his SFT rant.
My rant. I have a list.
Rant away.
Oh, now?
Rant on.
Erica has a nickname for him. She doesn't like to mention him by name, so she calls him Monkey for Banana.
Oh, and
then when me and her were talking, it's a kind of a long name, so we just shortened it to MFB. So I don't know. I just thought that was funny.
I call him Standing and Poop.
Did you see in chat there? Spooky says that Evotod is John Little Peepee's sock account, according to him.
Oh,
that could
really
be true. That's what he just wrote. Yeah.
Well, that would be interesting.
I don't have any sock accounts.
Yeah.
I wouldn't doubt that. That's probably true,
Like, I don't have any that are active. Like, I've made several because Kenthoven always bans my accounts, so I can't comment on his videos. So I would make new ones for that. But I don't have, like, a YouTuber persona that I go into streams with and pretend to be somebody else.
So here's my little picture of Standing in Poop.
Why is he a lizard?
Why is he a lizard? Because he evolved from lizards, I think. Standing in Poop. That's Standing in Poop.
It's more like standing on poop.
He's kind of in the poop. I don't know if you look. It kind of wraps around the back.
Yeah, he's kind of sinking down into it, I guess.
He's going to sink down a little bit. He's going to sink.
It's warm.
Yeah. Yep. So is part of your rant on endogenous retroviruses?
No, it's more the phylogenetics part of it, obviously.
Okay. Rant away.
Okay. So
are you planning on becoming a PhD in phylogeny?
Probably either that or Evo Devo would be my guess.
Evo. Cool. Evo was a great group.
Wait, say that again?
Devo, like the Whip It, the band that made
Whip
the
It,
song
Whip
Whip
It
It.
Good.
Oh,
Are we Devo?
yeah, I have
Are
no
we
idea what
Devo?
that is. I'm too young.
Yeah, I guess this may be.
So I guess if I'm starting on my rant, the first thing I heard him say was apparently he said that for universal common ancestry to be refuted, all we would need to show is one separate ancestry. And I kind of get what he's saying, but I feel like it misses the point because, like, in order to show that there's a separate ancestry, you basically have to use the statistical test we were talking about yesterday, Atheist Jr. So, like,
Yeah, the p-values.
yeah, and
failed.
I mean, like, just showing one incongruency isn't enough. You have to show that the entire tree of life is statistically unsound, which hasn't happened yet. So that kind of just struck me as a bit like the same thing as saying one observation gets rid of the entire theory, kind of along those lines.
Well, Kent Hovind says that if you can prove in one fact that shows the Earth is not billions of years old, then that means it's not billions of years old, and ergo it's 6,000, which is just not logical.
That doesn't follow.
That's not really how evidence works.
If we could find this Marshall guy. Oh, what did he put up here? Let's see. I thought he had a thing on. Let's see. Okay, he mentions orphan genes, and then he mentions. Let's see, what else is it? I can't. I'm not sure if I actually screenshot that or not. Where else? He always mentions linkage. No, not linkage disequilibrium. He mentions incomplete lineage sorting.
Oh yeah. That was the other thing I wrote down. Like, I don't think SFT understands that incomplete lineage sorting is a well understood problem, and there are methods to counteract it, namely just using more and more characters in your analysis, because the likelihood that multiple characters are going to converge on the same tree topology is reduced when you include more and more genes. So what I'm trying to say is, like, using one gene in a gene tree is not the same as using multiple genes in a species tree or a phylogenetic tree. So they're not the same thing, because we know that genes follow these stochastic processes, and therefore they don't always follow the organismal relationships.
Well, he brings up incomplete lineage sorting. Like he says, it's a problem for evolution. It's not the problem; it is the solution for why certain genes basically will come up with a slightly different phylogeny than other genes because of incomplete lineage sorting, which is basically a population has variability, and if a population breaks into two, you may end up with one gene riding along with one population and not the other, and you'll end up with little errors in the phylogeny if you try to. I think if you try to do that local phylogeny, but if you look further back, I think if you do more comparisons with a wider range with more outliers, I think it goes away, right? I've never seen an example.
Yeah, go ahead.
How many examples are there of this problem with incomplete? I mean, how many examples do we have? I tried to find papers on it. Oh, I did find paper after paper after paper.
I'm not sure how widespread it is, but I think you can.
So I always point out that the question
with by incorporating more and more data, which of course is kind of the other thing, which is a lot of these incongruencies, supposed incongruencies, are usually not always, but sometimes from a lack of data rather than from a lack of congruence. Because sometimes we just can't sequence the entire genome of all these species, and we're discovering new species all the time. So of course these trees are going to change. That doesn't necessarily mean that common ancestry is false, just that we're slowly honing in on the correct topology.
Yep.
So that,
And I think it's actually more proof for evolution. And he seems to think it's a problem. He keeps bringing it up, and he keeps putting this picture up. I don't know. And then his endogenous retrovirus thing was just totally all over the place. But anyway, I'll let you go on because it's your rant.
okay. Yeah, and the same thing for incomplete lineage sorting would apply to homoplasies due to convergent evolution. I mean, you can use gene trees to figure out the history of certain genes, but that's all they tell you. And I mean, I don't think Standing understands that phylogenetics isn't just about looking at one gene and then telling the species history from that. It looks at multiple characters and multiple data points. Because otherwise you're not going to figure out anything. And this was the other thing, which was the only way we know if something, or one way we know if something is a homoplasy due to convergent evolution or a homology due to shared ancestry, is because we can look at multiple characters and see the ones that aren't congruent with the others. That is, they don't support the same topology. They appear more than independently of each other. And it's only when we look at multiple traits do we figure that out. So looking at gene trees doesn't tell you anything.
If you use his car example, what you would have is some automobiles would have steering wheels, and there are other automobiles would have steering wheels. But then you'd have one automobile that had like a paddle that worked as a steering wheel, but it was totally different than a steering wheel. So you got a bat wing and a bird wing, right? And that's a homoplasy. And he kind of misses that all automobiles seem to have steering wheels. Though for a while back in the 60s or 70s, they had one car that had actually like a lever or something. It was like a long thing, and you pressed on it for steering. But I think everybody that bought one killed themselves, so they decided to discontinue it. But anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, on that point, something I also wrote was the fact that they seem to have this view that if you compare them superficially, what's called phonetic similarity, just looking on them from the outside, their overall morphology, and you compare that, somehow that demonstrates relatedness, which isn't how relatedness is determined. So, I mean, like in this car example, like it would be the proper way to look at it through phylogenetics, if you were to use the analogy in a slightly better way, would be to compare all the Toyota sedans and such. And I think I read this somewhere that like if you did that, you'd actually find a Toyota sedan and a Toyota truck would be more common or more related, I guess, than a Toyota truck and a and a Ford truck, because they look similar on the outside, but when you look into it, they have different manufacturers that use different components in different ways, and it doesn't. What I'm trying to say is it doesn't fit with this view that just by looking at them from the outside or looking at a few features at a time, it's just it just doesn't follow. Also, hey, Gracious.
Yeah, he stopped in. I put a link out in chat in case he wants to.
Maybe he can join and help me rant about SFT. Haha. We're just talking about phylogenetics and what SFT gets everything wrong about it. Okay, how about this? This might bring him in. I heard him talk about this DNA barcoding thing once again, and I know that the study he refers to is talking about mitochondrial DNA, which we understand, but it's also talking about the most recent common ancestor, and most recent common ancestor doesn't equate with an origin event for that species. It's gene trees, like we were talking about. It's how far back you can trace the history of that gene, but it doesn't really tell you much about when the actual species originated. So he kind of got they keep getting this wrong though, like somehow all species originated 200,000 years ago, or well, in their mind 6,000 years ago, but it only tells you that's when the genes converge, basically. Does that make sense? I think I could have phrased that better.
Oh, we got Randolph here too.
Yeah. Natty Boy is worried about me. It's okay. I'll get over it, Natty Boy. Dr. Dan's always dissing us on this channel. He doesn't, he's too famous for us. Anyway.
Yeah, Andrew, we recommended his channel on our stream yesterday too.
He just did a video on that one. Why am I not getting notifications for your videos? What's going on?
It's YouTube.
Yeah.
So, I guess, should I go on to my next point?
Yes.
Sure.
So I hope Dr. Dan can comment on this in the side chat, but like something SFT said, he said that if God created all these different forms with different amounts of similarities, and naturally some groups are going to be more similar to others. And what I thought about that was, okay, they're going to be more similar to others, but shouldn't that still be random? Like, why are these congruencies applying even at the phylum level?
Why are they in hierarchies? Okay,
right.
If somebody designed them, they'd be thinking, okay, I'm going to make a rhino, and I'm going to make an elephant, and I'm going to make a whale, I'm going to make a shark. And, you go along, but why does he start out with like a whole bunch of different kinds of sharks? Or I don't know, was there only one shark on the ark? Was there a shark on the ark?
I don't think they had fish on the ark.
Was there an ark shark? I will look that up.
Shark on the ark? No, I think, all the fishies in the ocean, they just figured they'd survive that. When they talk about sedimentation, by the way, okay, this is just an aside, right? They're talking about like fucking like a half mile of sediment suddenly being laid down by the floodwater. How's the old fucking fish gonna live through that if there's that much sediment in the water being blown around? I don't know. Anyway, I'd like them to explain that one to me.
Does anyone understand the question Natty Boy is asking me?
Rational empiricist says, if the theist said it was brutally contingent, what would turn on that? Brutally contingent, that I don't know. Are you asking if the theist said that everything was, I don't know what the fuck you're asking. You're gonna have to explain that. Nothing really turns on that. Boy, philosophers love to use that little phrase. They should stop because it irritates us normal people. makes us want to boot them from chat. You know?
What is said? What if they said what was brutally contingent? What is?
Yeah, explain yourself, Natty Boy. I'm not convinced that the question really matters. Nothing really turns on it, it seems. What are you talking about? Of course, he has such a limited grasp of natural selection that.
Ooh, that's another thing. Creation myths, like why are the hierarchies present even in regions of the genome that don't matter to the function of the organism?
And that's what I keep harping on, the non-conserved parts. Those show hierarchies. And the only reason for that is if God's pencil's dull and he makes a mistake and then he copies a mistake over and keeps copying the same mistake. And then he sharpens his pencil and goes on to a different group, right? I don't know what they're thinking. But yeah, they never want to talk about the non-functional part. Of course, they don't believe there is a non-functional part, right? And SFT mentioned that in his debate yesterday. Do you have that on your list?
Wait, repeat that. Sorry. What
what the hell was I saying?
Well, SFT. You said SFT did a debate yesterday.
Yeah, he did a debate yesterday, and I totally forgot what I started reading chat.
He mentioned something that Dr. Dan said, I think.
I don't know.
Nested hierarchies.
Nested hierarchies. I don't know. I forgot. I'm tired. I'm gonna have some coffee. Go ahead, Andrew.
That gets into another thing I was thinking about, which was basically I had this example provided to me by a professor I emailed on kind of the difference between a character that shows high phylogenetic signal in comparison to one that shows a low phylogenetic signal, and how a character that is highly congruent with the other characters, i.e. it shows the same, or it indicates the same tree topology, so that's a high signal. That kind of character would indicate common ancestry, whereas one that is an example of one that would have a low signal would be something like color patterning and pigmentation, for instance, because it can change all the time. And it struck me like, if creationists are claiming that the nested hierarchies aren't due to common ancestry, but are due to either how the designer did it or how the organism is supposed to function based on function, wouldn't it show a low phylogenetic signal? And instead of calling it instead of a high signal in comparison to something like we see in life.
Yep.
Oh, bye, creationists.
Bingo. Non-functional stuff. Nested nature of non-functional stuff is the ball game. Of course, somehow they believe that it's all functional, but
yeah. Well, it still doesn't explain for position of the codons and how
he said, yeah, that's what I was going to mention. The complete functionality of the genome. Now, he claims that it was created heterozygosity or created variation, basically. Okay, he thinks it's in there, and that somehow all of that stuff is going to be useful at some point. Yet he also believes that it's all mutating, and there's this mutational load. So all of that stuff is going away at some point.
Yeah, this is what I don't understand, because like I asked Kent Hovind this one time, because he was talking, like I said that basically I don't think that the fact that animals become more adapted to their environment, that only makes sense in evolution, because why wouldn't God just create them in the right environment with the right, adaptations? Like, why would they have to adapt? Like, it makes more sense that they would just be put in the right place from the beginning,
Right. Yeah, he's claiming that all of this 90% of the DNA that we haven't found a function for is going to be useful at some point. And he claims like the onion, which has 16 billion nucleotides or something like that. He claims that the reason for all that is because if you put the onion on the North Pole, the onion will grow just fine on the North Pole because it has all this created heterozygosity in it, right? He's actually said that. And of course we know that.
Sounds like Lysenkoism to me.
Yeah, fucking onions don't even grow well down here in Minnesota. I mean, you have to grow them in the spring because they don't really care for heat all that much.
Is it just me, or is created heterozygosity, as they're calling it, kind of like putting confetti in a finite bottle and then opening the bottle and having more confetti than you started with?
Yeah, something like that. It just doesn't make any sense. And then he goes on to endogenous retroviruses, and he kind of does the same thing. And he shows us, what does he say? Paper after paper. I'm not sure if it's in here.
So I always point out that the question when it comes to this specific class of retrotransposons, your explanation to be empirical is paper after paper confirmed, is paper after paper confirming, is paper after paper confirmed, is paper after paper.
He says that a lot.
Apparently so.
Yeah. So paper after paper shows that these endogenous retroviruses are functional. And actually paper after paper shows that, like, I think they found like no more than 10 of them. And, we got the one that, that's in the placenta. And then we have the ones for the immune system. And then that's it. I mean, out of a tremendous amount of virus, I think they make up a massive amount of like 6 or 7% of the human genome. And he claims they're all functional. And so far, we found like 0.00000 whatever percent functional, right? We found like a couple of them that are functional. The rest aren't. In fact, a lot of them kill you, if they pop into the wrong region. But he keeps going on and he shows these same papers like over and over. And I've got all 3 downloaded, and they're up on our Horseman directory if anybody wants to look at them. But he keeps going on about it like it's just a slam dunk. No, we haven't found a whole lot of fucking retroviruses that are functional at all.
I'm sorry, SFT, but slam dunks aren't very common in science.
Nope. Anyway.
So, Dr. Dan's comment got me thinking about something else in, like, kind of how there are multiple, in nature at least, there are multiple ways to get the job done, basically. Like, the creatures have found, evolutionarily speaking, creatures have found multiple pathways for the same function. This is convergent evolution, of course. And creationists always talk about how convergent evolution was just an ad hoc rescue device, and how it destroys evolution. But like, it's always pointed out to them, like, how when you go deeper into it, the homoplasies you find can be explained in this nested hierarchy and can be found to have developmental precursors that could have led to those structures. So the fact that not only can we trace the history of these structures, but we find that they follow this nested hierarchy kind of shows, I don't know, it just seems kind of silly to me. I'm trying to find my words here.
Yep, silly. Silly is a good word for standing in poop. He also took a shot at fossils and how it's low quality science or something like that, according to some creationist that wrote a book on low quality science. Low confidence science, yeah.
All the paleontologists are getting triggered now.
That's a creationist term.
Yeah, and right before that, he mentions that the big dino guy from the Dakotas with the wears the hat, whatever his name is.
Rob Action.
Berger. No, maybe
Creationist?
I don't. Maybe it's and one of them. Anyway, right before that, he mentioned how this guy did an analysis of old fossils and found that some were juvenile versions of, adult fossils. So which is it? Is it low confidence science, or can we go back and look at these bones, put them in CAT scans and do CT scans on them and figure out more and more about them? I mean, when it's convenient for them, they will give you a fact about fossils. And some person that just discovered something new from the fossil evidence, but then 2 minutes later, he's calling it low confidence science. So which is it? I don't know.
I'll be right back.
Yeah. Anyway, what they do with bones, particularly with like skulls and all of that, they're taking more and more sophisticated pictures of these things and getting scans of them, and they put together these really, really intricate morphologies, and they can see all sorts of transitional bone patterns and morphologies from one species to another. And the more they look, the more they find. And so they can take an existing fossil and for 30, 40 years get more and more information out of this fossil, and they keep doing it. And it's not exactly low confidence science. The goddamn bone is in your hands. It's right here in front of you. You can see it. You can CAT scan it. You can do all this shit. So how is that low confidence? I don't know. Go figure. Silence.
Yeah, they just dismiss all that.
Did he say quality or confidence?
I think it's like, is it low confidence science? Is it?
Yeah,
some guy
that's
wrote
what-
a book. Yeah.
When I was talking to Erica, she told me that there's certain terms that if you hear somebody say, that means they're a creationist,
Right.
because scientists never use those terms, like
that's one of them.
low confidence science, or orangutan, like if they pronounce orangutan wrong.
Yeah.
Uh,
Or like Smokey Saint rhizomization.
Right.
Smokey Saint was being all authoritative last night, and he was talking to Marshall about all the stuff he knows about science, and he mentions the rhizomization problem. And I hope everybody gets that joke.
well, what was he trying to say? Or what was it?
Racemization, or basically, yeah, you're talking about the stereo thing. He called it rhizomization right in the middle of his thing. It's kind of like Maddox when he was talking about chemistry, and he says reductionism and connotation instead of reduction and condensation. So you could tell that he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. And I mean, it's okay. Not everybody knows these terms, right? But not everybody goes on YouTube channels and blathers like they're some kind of a professional, that has just overturned evolution. So I mean, it's okay not to know, not to get the joke when he said reductionism and connotation, which is funny to chemists. So anyway.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to decipher what they're even trying to say.
Yeah, it is. Particularly the shit fairy. That's my new name for John Maddox.
Well, that's sort of the name he picked.
Yeah, it is. He's got that pixie thing. So anyway, the shit fairy, Nutty Atheist. Who's that?
Yeah, Smokey. He was pissed that you didn't let him in the other day. He ranted a little bit, like he wanted to go and start a live stream so he could do his rants. You know how he does those things, and I was surprised he didn't. But he never. As far as I know, he didn't. But
did he ever say what he wanted to come in and talk about?
Yes, he did. And now I'd have to think about it.
He wanted to think about. Wanted to talk about which women on YouTube he thinks are whores.
Yeah, that goes through his mind an awful lot. But I'm trying to think. He did mention it. Now I can't. It was. It had something to do. I think it had something to do with like the argument that him and John, the original argument that they had. Remember the big blowout? I think.
Yeah, where he was telling him he wasn't saved.
Yeah. And I think he thought that you misrepresented that when you were describing the conversation. I think that's what he was going to try to go after you about.
Yeah, well, Smokey said that he wasn't saved because of something he believed, and John was going off, and or Smokey didn't actually say that, but he was sort of implying it. And John said, "Are you saying I'm not saved?" And then he said something about living with a girlfriend as an example.
Yeah.
Though John didn't use that as a personal example. He used it as an example, but I think it was a tell, basically, about what was going through his head, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, they did have that fucking conversation. So, I mean, if I misinterpreted it, in fact, I'm sure I would, because I don't know what the fuck they're talking about with this. With what do they call it? Soteriology or something? Or is that the study of salvation?
Yeah, soteriology is the doctrine of how one is saved.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it, is what he was going to harp on, I believe.
Yeah, and I probably got a lot of things wrong because you know what? I don't give a fuck. And I was just poking you guys because you were so hilarious when you were when Maddox was screaming at Smokey. And Smokey was, I'll give him this, he was just cool as shit during that whole thing. He didn't let Maddox get under his skin for a second. He just kept even. So the guy has talent. That you got to hand it to him. But anyway, and he can craft a statement about what a shit monkey you are, or whatever the hell. I mean, he's just got the words.
Fuck.
In fact, we need a soundboard with all of his, his little cut downs.
Yeah.
And then we should.
But he uses all the same ones. He has a lot of them.
He does.
But he uses all the same ones, though.
Well, that's the thing about the shit fairy too. He uses the same words over and over again in any other context. He always says that, or he's got this like stock of big words that he looked up one day.
We have an objection from the side chat.
What's that?
We have an objection from the side chat.
Who's objecting?
Look on the screen.
William, keep to your metaphors, please, Stephanie.
No, look at the screen.
Oh, stop calling Mad Ducks. Oh, God damn it! I'm sorry. Did I call him? I call him that?
Yeah. John gets mad when we call Mad Ducks John. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't.
It's an insult, and I don't blame him.
Besides, it's a good biblical name. We shouldn't let the shit fairy use that name. Anyway, so where the hell's Andrew? Just totally disappeared.
I returned.
When did you return?
Dog whimpering, Andrew. I figured you had to go take care of some sort of issue.
We were killing time until you got back.
I gotta go feed him. What?
We were killing time until you got back.
Oh,
and I made a whole lot of
stream.
I made a whole lot of enemies while I was killing time. By the way.
Oh, well. Yeah. I kind of finished ranting. That's all I want to really say. I was just displeased by all the things SFT keeps repeating, even though I told him about this.
Yeah.
And others have told him about this.
He threw this up. What did he say?
Ancestry in the nuclear DNA compartment. Okay, we also have this entire additional layer of complexity and functional information that evolutionary mechanisms cannot account for. As you can see here, the epigenome controls how genes make the physical parts of our cells. And this extra layer of amazing information helps.
Okay. So this is epigenetics abuse is what he's doing here.
What epigenetics is he talking about here?
Okay, you see the paper he has up on the screen, Epigenetics and Bone Remodeling?
Yeah.
This paper is about epigenetic problems in bones concerning rheumatism, arthritis, and a bunch of other stuff that they're just recently uncovering. So they're figuring out that there's a possibility of medically treating some of this because they found out that it was histone modification, methylation, whatever. But the thing everybody has to know about epigenetics is even though it's a science that has been developing over the last 30 years, so therefore relatively newer than Darwin anyway, that basically epigenetics is how the fucking cell works. It's how the genome works. We know this. There's nothing that we can't account for here. There's no extra layers of complexity that had to be intelligent design. Epigenetics is how genomes work. It's how cell types differentiate. Go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Can I make a quick inquiry? When somebody says the epigenome, is that actually the nomenclature they use? I don't know. But when they say the epigenome,
I don't know if that's a. Let me check because
there are some words you can tell people are using to try to make themselves sound smarter than they are.
Yeah, they are starting to use that. So the epigenome, but the thing is, calling it an epigenome would be, I guess it would be a map of what which genes are turned off and which are turned on by epigenetic modification. So in every cell, but I'd prefer to call it a proteome because in every cell, epigenetics is going to determine which proteins are on and which are off. So I don't know why they need the word epigenome, but yeah, they do use it. And there's actually a Wikipedia entry on it. The epigenome consists of a record of chemical changes to the DNA and histone proteins of an organism. These changes can be passed down, but they aren't passed down very long, except in fungi. Fungus? Fungi? Fungi. What does everybody like to say? I like fungi.
Fungi.
Yeah, fungus. Okay. So anyway, yeah, it is a thing. So
I mean, because when I think epigenetics, I usually think of histone modifications. Doesn't it also refer to regulatory changes?
Yes.
DNA?
Yeah, it's regulatory.
Which is he referring to right here?
I don't know. He thinks that it's like this whole new code that the creationists had just discovered that indicates intelligent design because it's so complicated. And yeah, there's about, I think the list I saw, there's like 27 to 40 different modifications that are made. And if you look at the genome on NCBI, you can show tracks basically where certain epigenetic modifications are made that will promote or basically block a gene from transcribing. So I mean, and it's something we have a lot of information on, but it's how the cell works. It's how the genome works. There's no big mystery here. It's the only way it could work, right?
Yeah. Does anyone know if Leo is still around? Is he in the side chat still?
I don't think so. I think Leo went away. Danny is driving. He's parking his car right now. I think that he's probably having trouble parking it because he just got his license, I think.
I was just going to say, if Leo does show up, I wonder what he would think about all this exoplanet science turning up. Oh, there's Danny.
Yeah, Danny had a question for you, Andrew.
Yeah, when you ask a theist, why did God do it this way rather than another way? Why are there hierarchies rather than no hierarchies, right? They have, of course, two avenues. Either God has a reason for it, or it's a brute contingency. Now, if they say God has a reason for it, then they have two other moves. They can either identify the specific reason, or they can just say it's epistemically inaccessible. So he has a reason, but it's epistemically inaccessible. That's what they do with evil, right? That what you're perceiving as evil is actually something that God has a reason for, but we don't have epistemic access for what that reason is, right? Because there's a broader picture, we're finite, blah, 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 blah. So the questions about why did God design the biological world in one way over another, right? If they just say the easiest way is just to say, I don't know, but if they just refuse to say, I don't know, they might just say it's a brute contingency, meaning that's the way that God wanted it and that's it, right?
Right.
I just don't see what the theist is conceding in that moment exactly, unless you were just curious.
I think to me at least, that when he, if what I'm understanding from you is correct, when he's calling it a brute contingency or God works in mysterious ways, all that,
Okay.
it seems to me to be conceding the fact that they don't have a testable model, scientifically at least.
Okay,
Well,
can I
there are a
answer
lot of
that?
things we can see
Danny?
that from the very moment, right?
Danny.
But yeah, I can't. Sorry, I could barely hear you. Let me turn you up. Turn it up.
Oh, am I low for some reason? Okay, so the reason, so what turns on it is what they describe as the way God did it happens to be exactly how it would look if the thing evolved by natural selection. Okay,
Right.
that is the problem in these hierarchies. Now, so what they've done is they've just taken the evidence, which is evidence for evolution, and they've said, oh, that's evidence for design because God did it that way. So that's what turns on it. That
Right.
God just happened to do it the way that matches up perfectly with natural selection. So,
Well, okay, yeah, but most sophisticated theists are going to be fine with that, right?
well, sure, they're gonna, because they don't care what the evidence says. They're going to say God did it that way, no matter what we say, no matter what we discover. They're always going to say, "Oh, that's the way God did it."
Right. That's the smarter move, right? Because there's just
That's
nothing.
not very smart. It's sort of
what, because the idea is that they're saying that whatever biological, the way that there was, the way that we've had or come to the biological reality that we're observing is just consistent with what God wants, and that's the end of it.
no,
right?
but that isn't what they're trying to do. What they're trying to do is they're trying to prove that evolution couldn't have happened, and they're trying to prove that creation ancestry is a fact, that it's an orchard, not a tree, right? So if they're trying to prove that, they're going to have to find actual evidence of that. And what they're finding is evolution evidence that matches up with the evolutionary story. And then they say, "Oh, well, yeah, we knew that. That's the way God did it." So they're failing to disprove anything. All they're doing is saying, "I have faith in the Bible." Right?
I'm not familiar with younger creationist arguments, but it seems like they don't ever argue that in virtue of there being hierarchies, therefore God. Do they really argue that way?
What I think they're saying.
Standing did in this debate. He said that we are made in God's image. Therefore, the way we design cars is the way that God designed life.
Right.
He said that in this debate.
What Standing often says is that nested hierarchies are agnostic to the debate, quote unquote, which they aren't. But what he's saying is that hierarchies are consistent with creation, therefore they aren't evidence for evolution specifically.
Oh, well, that means that if I were in this debate, I would have just granted that, because I just don't see why would you contest that, right?
Well, because here's the thing. Because if Danny, you're saying,
go ahead. No, go ahead, Andrew.
I would say, because if it's consistent with it, then it either it's not testable, or when we do treat it as a testable hypothesis, it fails. Because if we're using the car analogy, for instance, what we see in cars, the pattern we see doesn't match the pattern we see in life. Cars show a low signal, life shows a high signal. So in that case, at least, you can consider the common design to be out of the picture for the moment, at least, until they have a workable, testable model.
I'm not seeing the inference, right? I still don't get the inference. The inference is, on both, I guess, views, right? You have hierarchies, right? But in terms of what explains the hierarchies, that's going to be different. But no one's going to appeal to the fact that they're hierarchies to infer to their own position, right? That based on what you just said, right? That they think that there's kind of an empirical equivalence between theism or younger creationism and evolution, is that there are hierarchies, right? So then the point of contention is what explains the hierarchies. That's the point of contention, right?
Right. Yeah,
You see, there's one big problem, Danny, and that is these hierarchies are also present in the non-functional parts of the DNA, the parts that mutate rather rapidly, and they don't have any effect on anything, basically. And,
I don't see how that.
Okay,
Look,
why are they there? Why do they follow a hierarchy there?
It just doesn't matter. Look, I'll give you an example where maybe it might be more clear, right? On both views, they're rocks, right? They're both on young creationism. There's limestone, and then on old Earth, geologic time stuff, insert geology theory. There's limestone too. The point of contention is not that the fact that there's limestone. Right. So no one is going to appeal to, limestone, therefore old Earth, or limestone, therefore young Earth. And I think that's what I gathered from what Andrew was saying, that there are hierarchies, right, on both views. Right. So in the same way that since it's a thing that is expected on both views, you're not going to be able to appeal to hierarchies themselves. Right. The fact that there are hierarchies to establish one view over another, they're going to point to other things like DNA. And I'm right with you. Right, in terms of whatever they point out, I'm going to be in support of you. But in terms of what they're conceding, right, they're conceding that, on evolution, there's hierarchies. And on our model, there are hierarchies. But you see, there's DNA. And that's something, right, given XYZ properties of DNA, that's not something that meshes well with your evolutionary theory. And that's what they want to say. And that's...
Wait a minute. What, limestone? I mean, limestone most certainly looks like old Earth, so that's kind of a bad example.
You're missing my point. You're just missing my point. You're missing the forest for the trees or whatever.
Well,
do you mind if I steel man you?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Danny, if I'm understanding what you're saying correctly, you're basically saying, which I would agree with you if you are saying this, that instead of thinking of evidence for, evidence against, we should be thinking of what best explains this. What's the best explanation for XYZ phenomena in terms of the predictions of the theory? Is that what you're saying?
I maybe I'll try to. I'll just put my point very very succinctly. I guess very succinctly. Okay. The idea is that when you're comparing theories, you're not going to really care about things that are predicted or that are claimed to be predicted on both theories, right, or both views. It just doesn't. How you're gonna compare the theory is what's different about them, with a different predictions. And the whole problem with theism, the whole problem with creationism in general, is that there's nothing that would falsify, no observation that could establish the uniqueness of that of theism as an explanatory theory, right, or model.
Right.
So that's what you're saying, right? So, but the point is that if you're debating someone that is saying, hey, yeah, I understand that hierarchies are not unique to my theory, right? I understand that on evolution there are hierarchies. Then why even contest that common factor, right?
Right. Yeah. I what I'm doing is I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt and treating it as a testable hypothesis. I'm not saying that that's how it was done. I'm saying, okay, if this was true in this way, then that we've refuted this, so it must have been some other way. But they haven't proposed any other way. It's just an untestable model. So I get what you're saying. I just think that until they propose a testable, workable model, it's not even in the ballgame.
Yeah, I'm sympathetic to everything you're saying. I just think that the thing is that I think a priori you can just claim or argue that it's in principle not something that can be testable, right? You don't have to entertain any ideas about it,
Right.
Yeah, and I think everyone here is sympathetic to that.
No, actually, what I said about non-functional DNA following the same hierarchy is a killer for creationism. And of course, we know that. Okay, basically, what you're saying, Danny, is that they can make up anything they want to match what the evidence is, right?
No,
you know that.
I don't know if I'm saying that. I'm saying that everything is consistent with the hypothesis. Is that what you mean?
They can make, they can make God did it this way, because I mean they could say that he even decided to copy the non-functional parts over in a hierarchical manner, manner. They can say that God sat down with a pencil and a notebook, and he decided to create these things, like starting with a hierarchy, right? He decided to do like one branch at a time, and he copied the same errors, which are what mutational errors are in non-functional, parts. He decided to copy them into every branch. They can say that, right? So they can make up anything they want. But all we have is the evidence. All we have is evidence. And that is really strong evidence for evolution by natural selection. The fact that these non-functional areas follow hierarchies.
Yeah, but
and
okay,
you can look at it statistically.
But you're talking to someone that has a theory that, where every particular observation you can make or anything that's quantifiable can be in conformity with it. Then I just don't see.
They can make up anything they want.
That's not what I'm saying. I think there's a nuanced difference between what you're saying and what I'm saying.
So Danny, do you mind if I ask you a question?
Of course, I don't mind.
So if the model is consistent with any piece of evidence, by definition, it is not testable, correct?
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, I'm just trying to make sure, because to me at least, and what we can see if you agree on this, but to me at least, once it conforms with any piece of evidence, it's a darn it, I forgot what I was going to say. Carry on. Sorry.
Okay,
the reason why it's not I mean, you were on the right track. The point is that like there's nothing that you could quantify that would show therefore God does not exist, right?
There's no way to show this is right. There's no way to show this might be wrong.
There can't be evidence for, but there also can't be evidence against God, right? There's nothing. Evidence doesn't even like make sense when you're entertaining a God hypothesis, right? That's where I think that's the main point of contention with the theist, right? They want to say that there's certain things that you do expect to see given God's existence, and so I think the argument should be about that, right? Okay, look, there's nothing that's generated.
No, but that isn't what they're making the argument about. They're claiming that science supports young Earth creationism.
Yeah, that's what I said, Speed. Right? I said that they're claiming that there are things expected on the hypothesis. In other words, there's AKA there's evidence for their theory rather than for yours.
Okay, but actually, in this particular case, the evidence for our theory is what they are trying to claim. Well, they never claim that. They never talk about that non-functional part because they don't want to talk about that because they know that is not evidence for creationism. It's not good evidence for
what I'm saying.
None of it is. In fact, none of it is.
True, though, is that evidence just doesn't even make sense with respect to the whole discussion.
Hierarchies are not evidence for God having created everything.
I'm saying whether they're hierarchies or no hierarchies, none of them count as evidence for the God hypothesis.
They count for evidence for evolution.
Well, that might be true, but the point is because evolution might generate predictions, right? But the point, what I'm saying is that to talk about evidence in this conversation just seems kind of silly to me if you're entertaining a theist.
But that's all they talk about is evidence. Right, that's what this whole channel is about, Danny.
The proper response is to contest that in principle there could be evidence, right? Too many atheists will actually ask for evidence, but that's the wrong question. Is that the question is why is it that
a whole different discussion? That's a discussion about theism, and that's philosophy, and that's not the discussion we're having. We're down in the trenches. God as a theory.
Okay. Look, Andrew and I were discussing God as a testable hypothesis, so I don't know what you're talking about.
It certainly is the one I'm talking about.
That's what we're talking about. God is the second that you invoke God as an explanation, you're in philosophy territory. Sorry to say.
Right, and that's not what we're talking about. That's not the conversation.
Exactly what Andrew was. Look,
that is not the conversation that Andrew and SFT have.
No, you're okay. Remember when I entered the conversation, I asked. Remember Andrew's question: Why would God have hierarchies? Why would there be hierarchies on the God hypothesis? That's the essence of his question, right? So I'm actually. What I'm saying is relevant to the discussion, right? For you to change the topic and then say that what I'm saying is relevant, it's just kind of you have short-term memory loss or something.
So
Andrew?
I think when I'm maybe you disagree on this, but like when I'm asking why would we expect this under the God hypothesis if we're considering it a testable model, I'm asking. I think it's, to me at least, a way of phrasing it so that I'm asking them for their burden of proof.
No, I think you're conceding too much, right? Look, it's like, to me, when I hear what you said, I feel like this is what's being said. What are the testable predictions made by a square triangle? Right? I mean, there's just it doesn't make any sense, right? To ask.
Right. Yeah. I mean, once a model becomes, I mean, well, earlier you said if there's no evidence for it being right, but there's also no evidence for it being wrong. To me, at least.
Look, there's no evidence against square triangles or against square triangles, right? Because what's wrong with the notion of square triangles is not that we can't find evidence for them; it's that it's conceptually flawed. Right? The idea that a disembodied mind having evidence in the first place is a conceptual flaw in the same way that a square has, a triangle has four sides. Right? So go ahead.
I think at least this kind of gets into the heart of why science doesn't deal with supernatural things.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely. Right. That's so the right thing to say to a younger creationist, right, is to say this is a category error, guys, right? We're in the domain of science. You admit that God is non-natural, God is supernatural, right? So why are you even talking to us, right? Now, there is an element of science that enters, right? There's like, look, if the question about how old the earth is, right? That's not you're not talking about God there, right? So they might say the earth is 6,000 years old and here's the scientific data to support that. That's reasonably, a scientist can engage with that. That's not the philosopher's job, right? The philosopher has nothing to say about that question, right? So there's a lot to engage with on a younger creationist model because they're making claims about the natural world, not just about how God interacts with the world, right? Which is why scientists are brought into the discussion, right? But the second that you ask about God as an explanation, well, no longer are you talking about science anymore.
I have a follow-up question whenever y'all are done.
I'm done.
Yeah, go.
Yeah, you're done. We're done with that.
Danny, when you talk about category errors, are you talking about like a finite static list of possible errors that fall into that under that name?
Can I answer your question with an example?
Danny, use the Yale example.
The what example?
Yale, where the guy is at the university, or he's at some university, and they're showing him all the buildings.
I think there's an easier look. How much does a triangle weigh? That's a category error because triangles don't weigh, right? Yeah, the point is that you're ascribing a property of weight to a thing that doesn't have, by definition, a weight. Right. So when you ask what's evidence for God, right?
So that's abstract and tangible, right? Or
right. Yeah.
Abstract versus physical versus.
Yeah, it's like how much does the number 9 weigh, right? I mean, like, it's just a weird question, or like the point is that when I think that's what people are doing when they're demanding or trying to give you evidence for God, right? It's like asking what's evidence for the number 9. It just doesn't make any sense because God is by definition wholly unnatural, right? At least humans are, on my view, right, dualistic, and on your view, physicalistic, right? They're physical. Sorry, I made up that word, physicalistic. They're physical, right? There's a physical aspect to human beings such that if I told you a human being is on some island, that generates some set of predictions, right? But if I told you there's a God who's wholly other, right, on some island, the island, the difference between, at least physically speaking, in predictions, right? An island with God and an island without God are going to look exactly the same.
Yep. And we don't care. Okay, so Nutty Atheist just revealed himself as a creationist with a sock account. So for some reason he heard something. He heard me say something about epigenetics, and he's been going off. And I think it's actually the shit fairy. Obviously, you don't recognize the rapidly growing significance of epigenetic factors specific to embryo development. Okay, so epigenetic factors in embryology has been a thing for about 3 decades now. And when they say rapidly growing significance, you know fucking well what creation is. Anyway, just wanted to point that out.
So to close off our discussion, Speed, or my discussion with Danny, can I ask him one last question?
Oh my God, this is going to be painful, but go ahead.
Also,
I'm sorry.
You're killing me.
It makes a lot of sense.
Kill me. Go ahead.
So Danny, to conclude our discussion, would you agree or disagree with the following statement that a nested hierarchy of traits is evidence for evolution, but not evidence for creation in general, not evidence meaning in this case that it's agnostic to that model. The model neither the model basically doesn't explain why it's there, if that makes sense.
Can you rephrase the question, or could you ask it again? Sorry.
Yeah, or did you hear the statement I made?
I did. I'm just trying to understand it.
Yeah, or just do you think would you basically agree with that statement? Do you think it is what you're saying?
Hierarchies are predicted on like an evolutionary theory,
right? Like evolution. Like if evolution were false, we wouldn't expect there to be a hierarchy as we understand it.
Oh dear, so, you're getting into tricky territory.
I'm not trying to get into falsification.
Yeah,
here,
I think for your purposes, yes. I don't really think that it's physically impossible that there could be hierarchies without evolutionary mechanisms, right? But I think that for your purposes, yes. I mean,
right? Like, yeah, what I'm trying to say is that a nested hierarchy is evidence for evolution. But a nested hierarchy is agnostic to God, basically.
It seems very acceptable. I think there's no prima facie issue with that, but that's only known given knowledge of the theory of evolution, right?
Right. You're talking about the Christian God, right? Because it's almost, I would say, evolution is almost contradictory to the Christian story. With Adam and Eve, you can't have a human. Modern-looking human fully created at the very beginning of the creation of Earth. That's not compatible with evolving from a common ancestry of apes. I think they're incompatible. But it depends on which God you're talking about, I guess.
And it actually depends on what kind of natural history you're working with. I think because the idea is that I think that you could have some weird case where, like, take a world in which the Earth is only 6,000 years old, but there's no God. I think that all the if we found that out for some crazy reason, I think all the laws of physics could, in principle, be the same. But that's just. But I think I take your point. The point is that like there's a whole natural history to our narrative in terms of life, and it doesn't seem compatible, right, with a particular interpretation of Genesis.
Well, with a literal reading of Genesis, I guess.
Yeah. So you can be one of those theists that just don't really regard the Bible in that way, of course, but
yeah.
Do you understand why we do this, Danny?
I don't know. I don't understand the question. Sorry.
Okay, the creationist thing, fighting with SFT and the creationists on.
Enjoy the false. Don't you like debunking all the false claims they make about scientific and evolutionary theory?
Yeah, that's part of it.
That's a little bit of it, but most of it is that it is an opportunity to learn, and for everybody to learn together. Because of what they put out there. So when they put a paper out and they claim that it's evidence against evolution, then we go read the paper and we read about 5 other papers and we come up with this big story and then we start talking about it. And that is the fun of it. That's what we're doing here.
Yeah, I don't think I'm contesting any of that. I don't know why you're bringing that up.
It's not about an argument against theism. That's a whole different argument, and that's philosophy. And we do a little bit of that too, but for the most part,
well, remember why I came in, right?
We're into the details, right? We're down in the weeds.
Remember why I came in, right? I came in because of Andrew's question. No other reason.
What was this question?
Right.
Why does God have the implement hierarchies in biological reality? Right. That's the philosophical. That question could be.
Yeah, I don't think he really expected an answer to that question.
Wait, what are you talking about? You're making stuff up. I put it in chat, and then he deliberately pulled the question out of chat and addressed it to you. Why are you saying this stuff?
So you actually want to know why God did this, Andrew? You don't believe in God, so.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to learn the other side, but I appreciate Danny coming in, Danny coming in here and trying to explain this to me, because I hadn't thought of it in that way. So
yeah, there's a fundamental problem with theism, right? This is the fundamental problem with theism, is that on theism, whether it's younger creationism, older creationism, Hinduism, it doesn't matter. On theism, right, there are no predictions. There can't be evidence for it because it's wholly non-natural crap, right?
Right.
I guess a question I might ask Danny would be, when a theist makes a claim, do they have a burden of proof?
Yes.
Okay. But you do understand, Danny, that is exactly what Maddox and SFT and all those guys are claiming that they're doing, is they're coming up with empirical evidence for God.
Yeah, there's a fundamental conceptual problem with that. And I pointed it out to them. They've heard me say it, and I'm done. I mean, I'm done pushing it. I don't really care anymore.
Okay.
Right.
We're in agreement on that.
Yeah.
I said that, they know my view, right? They know that I go as far as to say that if Jesus resurrected, right, after he died, that doesn't get you to theism, right? I mean, it's like literally if I started flying, right, or Jesus's body appeared to me right now out of thin air, right, doesn't mean theism is true. That's not evidence for God, right? That's what my view entails. Yep.
And that goes back to something you talked about when you first came onto this channel. So if you remember that conversation about the randomly occurring things.
Yeah, I gotta go, but thanks for having me. Y'all enjoy it.
Thanks, Danny.
Thanks, Danny.
Bye-bye.
Yep. So you following
Oh, sorry.
This nutty atheist was going off like, oh, you don't understand the current fucking epigenetics, whatever. It's like, what is he talking about? So I must have said something that implied that. Actually, what I said is that epigenetics is how the cell works. Epigenetics is how the genome works. It is how we end up with multicellular organisms. Did I ever say that there weren't layers? I'm pretty sure that was the shit fairy. I'm pretty sure the
This is a weird feeling because I didn't disagree with pretty much anything Danny said, and I feel weird now.
Yeah, well, I understand his point, but I mean that's not the conversation we were having. Exactly. We're having that down in the weeds science conversation and fight with SFT, which is, I mean, it sounded like Danny was kind of trying to spoil our fun. Yeah.
Hey, Speed, would you mind if, or up to you, but like, would you mind if Leo came on here and we can discuss like some astronomy stuff?
Sure, leave him come on. And
I think trying Danny to derail the stream that me and Andrew did yesterday. I think maybe he would get some value out of that. I think that's some of the stuff we were talking about yesterday.
I am shooting ahead at 4:00 though, guys. So
okay,
so you know that.
Yes, Speed with the nutty atheist there. Honestly, I kind of thought the way he was talking, or just the way he was phrasing things, I thought it could have been a sock count of decimals for some reason. And you know how he can be arguing. But
no, I don't.
But I think it's a strong possibility that it's little peepee too. It's so.
Or else SFT, one or the other.
This is the problem with internet nowadays. You don't know who anyone is anymore.
Yeah, he brought up pseudogenes. Yeah, you should be able to, you used to be able to go and look at a person's email and get their IP address. I don't know if you can do that anymore, but that was always very
from reading the comments from Nutty Atheist. I think it's obvious that that's LPP.
Yeah, I think it's LPP. First time on your channel, I'm actually trying to help you. It's called Steelman, not get destroyed by the Yaks. Oh, fuck you. Anyway.
So, you wanted to talk about astronomy?
Yeah, go ahead. Where's Leo? Come on, Leo.
So, Leo, remember the problem when Mercury wasn't working with Newton's laws?
Had a retrograde orbit.
Yeah.
Then it was Einstein that fixed made it predictable, right?
I think I also heard somewhere that the prediction by general relativity of gravitational lensing of light around the sun would have been wrong had Einstein not have come up with the right mathematics in time for that the solar eclipse when it did happen. I could have phrased that better. Sorry. Hey, Leo. Leo.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons that people knew Einstein was the real deal, because he was able to predict the date of the eclipse, I think.
Anybody had that, I think, back then, even.
Yeah, I don't think it was the date of the eclipse that he predicted.
It was the prediction that we confirmed in the eclipse.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, the star.
It was the parallax of the stars as a result of the sun's gravitational field bending the light as it moved through it. Einstein and Sir Arthur Eddington, I believe.
Yep.
1917.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, he gave out gave out a specific number for the lensing before that, and it was wrong, that we now know. But fortunately, they didn't get to measure the eclipse because they were captured by the Russians, and so when they were released and they had the eclipse in another year, and Einstein had worked out the rest of the theory and predicted the right number, it was confirmed. So that was good.
Yeah, I don't know anything about the history of it that deep. I just know what it is and what it does.
I just heard it from a lecture somewhere.
Yeah, laws help us understand better than I don't know what I'm saying, I guess. Laws help us understand accurately to reality instead of I don't know the other thing for some reason.
Subjective?
Well, I posted a picture on my Twitter the other day of something that's called an Einstein ring, where you have the light from one galaxy that's bent because of gravitational lensing, bent because of the gravity of another galaxy that's in front of it, and the light is bent all the way around, so it forms a ring. It looks really cool.
I think we can use gravitational lensing in such a way that we can also, like, literally make a map of dark matter if it is some kind of substance out there. It's pretty cool.
Which it most likely is some sort of substance.
Yeah, I think so.
The fact that it has that much mass, and there's galaxies that have it, and then there's galaxies that don't, and it seems to sort of like move around and evolve. It behaves very much fluid-like. It definitely seems to be some form of matter.
Right. Yeah, I think that's the standard model in cosmology. So Leo, I don't know how. Well, I'm certainly not up to date, but how up to date are you on the current exoplanet science going on?
I don't know anything about exoplanets.
Oh.
Do not ask me about exoplanets. I don't know shit about exoplanets. Okay. My interests in astrophysics have been generally galactic, stellar astrophysics, galactic and extragalactic astrophysics, and cosmology. I don't really care about planets that much. Planets aren't cool to me. Stars, black holes, quasars, galaxies, the universe itself, the early universe, that stuff interests me. Planets, I don't. Boring. I let the astronomers deal with that.
So solar system formation would also be out the window.
Well, I mean, I understand a little bit of that, but no, that's not something I would know about to the extent of other areas.
How about this? The claim that's often made, I think we've talked about this before, but why not talk about it again? Creationists often claim that stars never been observed forming.
Which is false. We've observed numerous steps in the process of a star forming.
Right.
It just takes so long that we can't really...
Yeah.
I mean, we maybe do see the flash. I think it was hard to really know. I mean...
Yeah, I have an article here from PBS Nova that talks about a particular protostar that we've been watching for, I think it says 18 years or something, 16 years, something like that. We've been watching it for close to 2 decades. And it's a slowly forming star. It's a protostar. We're literally watching a star form. But as Top Dog just said, humans aren't privy to the timescales to actually watch it from the collapse of some cloud of gas and dust to the moment that nuclear fusion is initiated in its core.
Yeah, but what's cool is they can predict what's going to happen at various stages and then find samples
and
of
they also see them in different stages too. They can, right? I mean, they're looking in clouds and you're seeing some that are actually starting to form and others are in different stages. Like, yeah. So I mean,
the fact that we
definitely observed. It's
the fact that we see a lot of stars in nebulae also lends credence to our models for star formation, because though those simulations predict that nebulae are going to be areas where you are likely to find more star formation. That's why oftentimes they're called stellar nurseries, because the shock wave from the supernova on all the gas and dust around it will compress various regions and cause stars to begin forming.
Right. Yeah, that kicks it off. Yeah.
The multiple and the nebula, the singular, like
what?
How the word is nebula or nebulae the plural and nebula the singular.
Yes.
All right.
Just like formula and formulae. Supernova, supernovae. I prefer the traditional Latin plurals because that's just the way that it should be.
Hey, Scott. By the way, speaking of babies being born, how's that going?
Well, it was a false alarm last night.
Okay.
So we're just waiting for the next round.
Who is waiting?
Well, we're waiting for a star to be born.
Yeah, my daughter-in-law is about to have a baby.
Okay, that's what I was trying to figure out. I was like, is this a kid of Scott's or a grandkid that's about to be born? Which one is it?
Born. Grandkid.
Okay.
I'm in the grandkid phase of my life now.
Yeah. Yep.
So, Leo, if you want to get a good laugh, go over to Praise's channel. His on the after show last night, they were talking a lot about this same subject, star formation and all cosmology, all kinds of different topics, and it was quite comical. If you want to get a good laugh, go listen to that.
Was that in the beginning or the latter part, the after show?
It was, but later. It's probably at least 2/3 into it. I couldn't give you a timestamp. If you Speed, if you're on, actually, is this it? Yeah. If you go to where that what's his name, Igar, or what's the flat earther guy's name?
Igor,
or whatever his name is. If you watch during the stream, and you'll see the anti-vax sign thing come up.
Yep.
Right when that comes up. So if you go basically about 30 minutes before that, I think they're still talking about it at that point, but if you go like 30 minutes prior to that, that's right where it is. They talk for quite a while, a good half an hour.
Here's where he comes in at 2:24.
Yeah,
this
so
is where the
back up, that's towards the end of it, I'm pretty sure. They talk
that's
Warren's leap.
That's where he came in. The anti-vax guy.
Is this the guy who believes that the vaccines make you magnetic?
Yeah. Yep.
I see his icon. It says like something about magnetic. You see like
magnetic
DNA altering shot. Yeah.
So who the hell is Warren's leap? Does anybody know who that is?
So David, was it after
I guess not.
Came in? David?
No, it was before. If you back up
okay.
towards the beginning, a good half an hour. I don't know exactly how long they talked.
Here's a half an hour. Oh, I gotta put my headphones on. I could just mute.
Leo, Top Dog asked you a question in the private chat.
Oh.
Do you want me to play some of this?
Honestly, I don't know the answer to that. My assumption would be that there would be just an increase in its because I mean it's going to be pretty bright already just because of the density of the object. But once fusion initiates in the core of a star, let's say the size of the sun, before it increases in brightness as a result of that, would be before we see that actually happen, before those photons escape the star, is going to be about 100,000 years as they travel through the layers of the star. But once they reach the photosphere and break free, if you were looking at that moment, you would probably see the star just get brighter. It wouldn't look like turning on a flashlight where, it's dim and then boom, it's bright there. But it wouldn't be a really, really slow transition. It would be, over the course of maybe a few seconds, 2-3 seconds, you'd see it go from wherever it is to where its brightness will peak after that.
But in the meantime, when the fusion starts in the center and the photons take their time to escape the plasma, I would suspect in the meantime the star would increase in size because of the pressure increase, right? Or not?
I don't think so.
No? Alright. Well, maybe I'm wrong there. I would think if fusion would create more pressure inside, and then that will expand the star when it's beginning to fuse.
I don't know.
And I don't know. I'm just asking. Maybe we'll be able to see the star expanding due to the fusion initiation earlier than the actual light that is being released from the fusion reaction. But yeah.
Dark energy survey results from crispy to peacock. Smooth or lumpy. Yep. I like smooth pudding. Lumpy pudding scares me.
Lumpy pudding is disgusting.
It's pretty, like tapioca, lumpy tapioca. God, that's scary shit. Yep. My grandma tried to feed me that shit. I wouldn't eat it.
Should we watch
Not
this?
all of the. So.
Oh, well, we could try.
If you stretched out,
Sorry, but I was just trying to clarify. Is there a problem with optical illusions? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying making the light in transit would end up making them, with the processes we have, would make it be deceptive. But if you want to call it an optical illusion, but it wouldn't be. It would be a literal against. I don't know. It's fine with me or whatever. I just think the asymmetric thing of timing. The synchronicity thing. What do they call that? I forget what it's called. It's where time is one-way speed is in.
Is there any way I can
synchrony convention is what he's referring to.
Is there any way I can blur out the lower left quarter of my screen?
You have
an overlay,
and then
light speed
twice the speed in one direction. There's no way to possibly ever know that wasn't the case. And
that's why I don't like it. It's basically unfalsifiable. I don't like
it.
Right,
but it's the only plausible.
So is this where they're talking about it?
Well, right now they're talking about the speed of light in the anisotropic and synchrony conventions.
Yeah.
Is this what you meant, David?
Yeah,
I think whatever. I guess.
I think you could probably. I'm trying to think. I think there's actually better parts if you even go back a good 20 minutes more. It's all pretty decent, but they really get into SFT talks a lot. They start talking about.
I actually like to hear what they're hearing what they're saying about this, just because.
Yeah, and then go for a little bit, and then look at the time span, and then maybe back up a good 20 minutes or half an hour prior to this, and we can listen a little bit of that if you choose to.
What? I've already gone 30 minutes back from where Vax guy came in.
Yeah, I know, but listen to this first, because Leo wants to hear this, and then if you decide to listen to more, we'll go back a good half an hour prior to that.
I like Danny Kaufman's explanation too.
So I can explain the view.
But I wanted to answer the question.
Time dilation is actually an interesting way to argue for prophecy.
What?
Yeah.
Well, so you all have heard of
I've never heard anyone present that, but if you look at the twin paradox, I don't know if you're familiar with that. And if consciousness, can travel faster than light, then
oh my God,
prophecies scientifically.
Consciousness isn't the thing that
verifiable.
moves. I don't. Let's say saying can digestion travel at the speed of light? It makes no sense.
Something about certain. I'm sorry. That atoms that hold the same structure, if there's a change in the properties of that atom, then all atoms of that type would change simultaneously, no matter where they are.
What is the color of blue?
Oh no, that's like the single.
What's the temperature of blue?
What's that?
What is the temperature of blue? Like the same type of question about like how fast consciousness can travel. All right.
Consciousness travels really fast.
Mm.
Actually, consciousness is slow as fuck. It takes about 200 milliseconds to realize that you've chopped off your foot.
Mm-hmm.
Or actually, no, I think it's more like 3/4 of a second for your foot. If you get hit on the head, it takes you 200 milliseconds to realize it. Sometimes you don't.
I forget what it's called. It's like where they all gain the same property, the same functional property.
Well, yeah, I think if the fundamental like constants were changed or whatever, but we don't even know where that. Scientifically, I don't think you can. I mean, that's just
you can prove it. I mean, it's another thing that's unfalsifiable. But for you to know something like that, you'd have to be able to go across the entire universe and then test every individual atom. But
I will say something about.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to point out. I would say something about Dr. Jason Lisle's synchrony convention argument. It is based on known Einsteinian science, as in it's consistent with what we know about physics.
Einsteinian science.
And
really?
I had him on my channel for a couple hours, and I kind of lost my voice from tonight's debate, so I'll try and get this out as quickly as best as I can. But I compiled a list of all the so-called best objections. I got a bunch from Hugh and presented them to him, and he demolished them all. I mean,
but he SFT didn't ask him any of the questions I posed in the side chat in that discussion.
But if you Google Dr. Jason Lisle's synchrony convention, is that what he was talking about?
Yes.
You end up with Georgetown Back Pain Relief Center is a top link. On Jason Lisle's music. It's not making that big a splash, apparently. Anyway.
Well, no, what he's not saying like this is something that was proposed in a paper somewhere. This is just an argument that Jason Lisle gives, utilizing an anisotropic synchrony convention as a way of getting around the distant starlight problem.
Has he written about it anywhere?
I don't know. Probably not.
This is actually
it's been on like you'll be probably gonna have to look on creationist websites.
Oh my goodness.
This is actually the good part, I'm pretty sure. SFT goes off for a while. I think this is right where he starts talking about the speed of light and all. He goes on for a little bit, and I think Bob jumps in right here. There's some pretty funny stuff in there.
I did want to say before you play the video that so I believe it's the Einstein-Poincaré synchrony convention is what is utilized, which gives us that the speed of light is constant. And there's good reasons why physicists use that. There was another one proposed called the anisotropic synchrony convention, which essentially states that if you could make the speed of light whatever you wanted from zero or from like just above zero all the way to infinity in one direction, and then account for that difference when it's moving in the other direction, then you could make the speed of light whatever you wanted and somehow get it to fit with physics. Because we can't measure the speed of light from a point A to a point B. Simply because if you separate the clocks, if you separate the devices for detecting it, anything that moves in space-time, regardless of how, even if it's non-relativistic motion, the clocks will no longer sync synchronously. So you would have to have one device send a beam of light out to, say, a mirror, reflect it, and see the time it takes to go and reflect back. The problem is this means nothing, because we don't derive the constancy of the speed of light from observations of how fast it's moving. There's much, much deeper physics from which we derive that the speed of light is constant and calculate what its speed actually is. For me, the best way to do it is to say that just look at the equation C equals 1 over the square root of epsilon naught mu naught.
So the speed of light is actually not about light, it's just more fundamental physics.
Yes, it's not a thing that has to do with electromagnetism, although it relates to it. It's a property of space-time. not of light. So light is just restricted to that speed since it's moving in space-time. The gluons are the same way, but are we applying the anisotropic synchrony convention to gluon? Are we saying that the strong interaction is anisotropic as well? And these are questions I'd love to ask Dr. Lisle as a PhD astrophysicist, but I know I'd never get the option to have a discussion with him. So,
and also gravitational waves, if I'm not mistaken, also travel at the speed of light through the space. Yeah.
Wasn't there what type of experiments have they done testing the speed of light? Was there something done? I heard somebody talking about it, that they did a three-way test where they bounced it off a mirror. Was that?
Yeah, there's been a lot of different tests.
That wasn't like out into space, like they put something.
Yeah, I think mirrors on the moon, like reflectors.
I heard somebody mention that, and I didn't know if that was true or not. I never heard of it, but somebody talked about that. Yes.
I did find this Bozo's article on answers in Genesis. So,
by the way, Randolph, restricted would be the best word to use there. Space-time restricts how fast things can move within it. You are constrained. Your maximum speed is constrained by space-time and how it's structured. And so epsilon naught is a constant that gives us what's called the electric permittivity of the vacuum of space, of free space. And this is essentially in just a bare vacuum. How will that vacuum permit an electric field through it? And then mu naught is the magnetic permeability of a vacuum. How well does a vacuum, just a bare vacuum, how well does a magnetic field permeate just a pure vacuum? And what you find is that when you consider that, and then you consider that, you take an accelerating electric current will create a magnetic field, but that magnetic field will also be oscillating, and an oscillating magnetic field creates an electric current, and a moving electric current creates a magnetic field, and you go on and on and on, and what you get is something, given the structure of a bare vacuum, and what I just said, you can get propagations through the electromagnetic field in vacuum, and those propagations will move at a defined speed. And that speed is 299,792,458 meters per second, the speed of light. And those propagations are electromagnetic radiation, i.e. light. And that's why it was initially dubbed the speed of light.
And I'm pretty confident with that myself. I don't know about anybody else, but
looks like Lisle. Okay. Anyway, I put a bunch of stuff in the description.
Jason Lisle? Is that what you just said?
Lisle, yeah. Lisle.
Call him Jason Lisle because we're going to clean the floors with him.
Yeah. Okay, so we only got about 10 minutes left, guys. So you want to watch
15.
more video?
I'm
ready. Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Lisle is willing
some of the sun.
To defend his distant starlight model. And I don't think anybody can refute him on it, to be honest with you. I mean, he recently debated Hugh probably 6 months ago, and I highly recommend it.
Okay, can you pause really quickly because I've heard this mentioned numerous times. Oh well, he's debated people like Hugh Ross. I'm like, that's not impressive. I want to see him debate Sean Carroll. I want to see him debate Leonard Susskind. I want to see him debate Roger Penrose. Put him up against somebody like that. Let's see what happens.
I can find that debate. Hugh Ross debate. Transcript, answer. Oh, they have a transcript on answers in Genesis. Wow. They must have really liked that one. Anyway, I put his article about his light thing that apparently nobody can refute. So anyway.
For the asymmetrical speed of light?
No, it's the oh man, I just had it, damn it. It's the
called synchrony.
See, here's the synchrony convention, yeah, but it's there's no word for it.
So what it's the idea that, and I would just recommend going to watch my discussion with him, but it's the idea that two clocks separated by distances are synchronized, and Einstein wrote a lot about this. Dr. Lisle actually wrote a book about the physics of Einstein, just to give people kind of a primer into this, because it is technical, right? It's not easy to understand, but the point is there's no objective way to synchronize two clocks separated by a cosmic distance. There's no way to do this without first assuming the speed of light.
Yeah, the two-way speed of light.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's called synchronicity of conventionality and synchronicity.
Exactly. So depending on what convention you're using, we can say, and this is all, it's almost mind-boggling to understand, but according to Einstein himself, it is impossible to know the speed of light in terms of the two-way trip. And therefore, if you're using...
Now we don't know the one...
Right.
Guys, I have to step out for a minute. Should I let it play, or you guys want to talk about it?
Let's let other people make that determination. I don't...
Yeah, you should probably let it play, I think. I don't know. It's up to you guys.
Okay, I'll be back in a minute.
All right.
Hopefully.
Is Scott still here? Does
All
he
right.
still have mods? I mean, because then he could just...
Depending on what convention you're using, it's perfectly scientific to say that the light reaching up
still here, but I
the
can't
light reaching atom
pause.
is instantaneous, which makes sense
Yes,
biblically
Scott.
because that was the point of the stars in the first place, to be signs for seasons and whatnot. So obviously Adam would have had to see them right away. So therefore, actually, this is the ancient way to synchronize clocks, obviously, right? So in other words, light takes no time at all to travel from the most distant galaxies to Earth.
Which is
And
technically
as
true. They
amazing
don't
as it
experience
is, that is
time.
100%
But that has nothing to do with their speed.
with the physics of Einstein.
But what you're saying, he can't know.
I mean, it's solid state.
It's a convention. We can only measure the two-way speed of light, and then we average it out half and half. But you cannot
That's
measure.
not-
There's no way
no.
because when moving objects, even if you try to synchronize clocks and you move them apart and to try to synchronize them, just by moving them apart, we know that time dilation happens even the slightest amount when you're in it with a.
Oh man, I really wish Pete was here to pause it because
you're moving. So
there's a really
because light
major
works,
point
it bounces off stuff and then comes to our eyes. Right there, there's two-way right there. So just seeing is two-way. There's no way.
There'll be more,
You
Leo.
cannot measure. There's
So with what
there he
Jamie Russell just said there, this is the thing. They're essentially saying, hey, if what special relativity says is true, then we can't synchronize two clocks separated because of time dilation when we move them apart from one another. The one in motion, or if they're both in motion, their clocks will begin ticking at different times. Well, yeah, of course, this is, we got special relativity. But the thing is, they're then utilizing that to say that that's literally a postulate, one of the postulates of special relativity, therefore is false. So they're using at least attempting to use special relativity in an example demonstrating that one of the very postulates of special relativity is somehow wrong, that light is not constant. And the argument here is nothing more than a reductio ad absurdum.
You should hear. I mean, I don't know if we'll get to it, but Standing for Poop goes on and on about how the Earth was in a white hole and it was in such a, standing still, and then God created the stars, all the rest of the universe, and the Earth didn't experience any time, and he goes on and on about all this crap. And I think this
talk
is
about making shit up.
Oh, there's a lot of stuff in here. They go on about a ton of stuff. It's pretty good. It's quite comical.
So Leo, is Russell Humphreys' model that SFT is describing, is it even valid?
I don't know who Russell Humphreys is, and what model is being presented here?
Isn't it that the Earth is in a gravitational well, and because of time dilation, that's why the light is reaching us within 6,000 years?
God, they just make shit up to fit.
Yeah, that's just completely misunderstands what relativity is. Being in a gravity. Wait, I don't even. Yeah, I'd have to look. I don't even know what the fuck that means. I have no idea how to interpret that at all.
And they did a bunch of battling during the stream too about young Earth and old Earth too. They were battling. Oh yeah, there was a bunch of that in here too.
Jamie Russell's out there a little bit, but I have to say I haven't ever had any problems with him.
Do they mention anything about the Big Bang cosmology, David?
Yes. Yeah, like I said, they talked about this for quite a while, and I don't know the timestamps. I didn't write it all down or anything like that, but there's quite a bit of stuff in here. Like I said, SFT started making up all kinds of crap to fit the Bible.
Like he always does.
Yeah,
maybe we should revisit it.
Why do you think I call him strangling the truth?
There's quite a bit. And like I said, they went off about, young Earth and old Earth, because some of them are old Earth and some are not. But that was prior to this, I believe. It was way, way earlier than this, probably.
Hey, Leo, I am curious, once again, just by way of review, could you repeat what postulate of special relativity is false if their use of the two-way,
anisotropic?
Thank you. It is used.
So wait, repeat the question again. I'm sorry.
Well, you said some postulate that had to be false if their use of that time.
I don't know which. I think it's the second I can't remember which postulate it is, but it's one of the actually. Now that I think about it, the specific. What the fuck is this? Postulate's a KMT. What the fuck is that? Fucking Google, man. Fucking Christ. Oh yes. The first postulate is the principle of relativity. The laws of physics are invariant in all inertial frames of reference, and we can represent that with Lorentz transformations between those frames of reference. The second postulate is the invariance of c, the speed of light. As measured in any inertial frame of reference, light is always propagated in empty space with a definite velocity c that is independent of the state of motion of the emitting body, or the speed of light in free space has the same value c in all inertial frames of reference. It's too bad we're wrapping up because there's a speed. Do I have like 2 minutes? Because there's a really good visualization of what we mean when we say the speed of light is constant and why it doesn't change in frames of reference, and also what is meant when physicists say things like when you're traveling at the speed of light, you don't experience time.
Sure. Do you want to show up?
Yeah, I need a.
We got about 5-6 minutes.
Or do you need to screen share? Also, I think it's maybe better than to.
No, that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, I think it's better than this. Yeah, exactly. Stop screen sharing that and make Leo bigger, maybe.
So, David, I'll try to take a closer look at the rest of this video and see if I can timestamp some stuff for tomorrow, maybe.
I'll do the same. I can look up the parts where they did talk battling over young Earth and you know. There's not a ton, but there's some of that, and then this here about the cosmology. I thought those were the best parts. I mean, I didn't watch the whole stream. I just happened to catch those parts of it. So,
also, Speed, did you catch the review paper that I sent you on Twitter?
The Veritasium one, or no?
No. I replied to one of your tweets, or recent tweets, and I proposed a good review paper on abiogenesis. I think maybe you were interested in that. I think. This is
where was it?
Overview. On Twitter.
On Twitter?
Yeah, Twitter.
I don't twit.
Oh really? I replied to one of the tweets. Maybe it's an old tweet. Then I didn't see the date on Twitter.
I don't see a recent one, so let's see. So Nestle, where are you? So you sent it to me as a message, right?
Yeah, as a message. Yeah, not a DM, not a direct message, just a public one.
I don't see anything. I see nothing from you. Oh, you made it public? Oh God, I would never have seen that. I don't watch Twitter. What the fuck? I gotta.
Yeah, what channel is Twitter?
Don't you have notifications?
Not really.
Like when I open Twitter, I always see like if I get something, I always see notifications 1 or like 3 new replies or something like. Yeah, all right.
Oh, let's see. Send it to me again through a real social media channel, something that somebody would actually look at.
Any suggestions?
Email. Email really works well. Yeah. Also, posting in private chat here would work.
You're so 20th century Speed.
Yeah.
Although it's a paper that is not open access, you need to use Sci-Hub for this.
I always give my Twitter information to people who I don't want to hear from. So.
That's real clever.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, because I'm never going to look at Twitter. Pretty much the same thing with Facebook, or Facefuck, as I like to call it. But yeah, I do get Facefuck notifications.
I think Leo is ready to present.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Leo.
Go ahead.
Leo. Okay, this is what's generally referred to as a space-time diagram. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. X, obviously, there's X, Y, and Z, but simplistic sake, X. Space axis, T, time axis. The red line is sort of something really, really interesting when you look at the mathematics. So this is what your frame of reference would. This is what I guess you could say space-time would look like in your frame of reference if we were just sitting like you are. I'm assuming everybody is sitting down and not moving. Now, if you started to accelerate, things would change, but you wouldn't really be able to notice them until you reached relativistic speeds. Once you start getting 70, 80+% the speed of light, you'd notice that your time axis would not look like this. It would look more like this, and your space axis wouldn't look horizontal. It would look more like that. And so an interesting thing is that if you have 2 points in the original, in your inertial frame of reference, here and here, they'll be at 2 completely different points in the I guess you could say squeezed frame of reference, and this gives rise to 2 effects we can measure in space-time. One is called length contraction, and the other one is called time dilation. This red line, funnily enough, represents the speed of light. So that if your axes converged on this line, that would be what it would be like to move at the speed of light. This is why photons don't experience time. They don't experience space either, because there is no space-time. The space-time axes have converged onto each other. You've lost any ability to map a frame of reference. So photons don't experience space-time. This is also how we know the speed of light is a constant. That line coming out, the red line, is always at 45-degree angles in between the space and time axes, regardless of how fast you're moving.
Oh, but wait, in this image, the red line is not in 45-degree angle between the blue lines, right? But
well, no, because that's the thing. It doesn't change, i.e., it remains invariant. The speed of light is invariant, regardless of how fast you're moving. So even if you're moving at 99% the speed of light, and you turn a flashlight on, the photons coming off that flashlight are still moving at c. They're not moving at c plus 0.9 c. They're moving at c. So that helps that gives us mathematically the invariance.
But I mean, you said that the red line, the speed of light, is always at the 45-degree angle from either axis, but in the blue axes are like less than.
Well, within the blue frame of reference, that red line, because in the blue frame of reference, you still look like this.
Oh, right. Oh, if you were the blue,
so that red line is still at a 45-degree angle.
If you were the blue, then that would.
If you were in the blue, you would look like this, and the outside world would look like the curved.
All right.
Relativity.
Like the blue image is from a normal perspective of you.
Essentially, there is no way for your own. If you're measuring your own frame of reference, there is no way for it to look anything other than that right there. You can't measure your own frame of reference looking like that.
No. All right, I get it. Yeah.
Because you're always stationary with respect to your own frame of reference, naturally.
Yeah.
So you can't ever measure your own frame of reference as anything other than orthogonal. The axes actually being orthogonal to one another. So there's some relativity for you guys today.
Cool.
We did space-time diagrams. The quiz will be tomorrow. I expect your assignments due in on Friday. So.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I put a link in the private chat, Speed.
You agreed to be quizzed by clicking on the link to get to this live stream.
Yes.
Mine will
unlike Quantum John's channel, you actually do get college credits watching this one, watching the weather report. Yep.
Oh. How many points is the assignment worth?
I don't know. I haven't figured that part out yet.
I'd say 25 points.
Yeah, it's usually 25. That's usually the going
25.
rate. Mine will be in the form of a diagram like that, Leo. So
what?
Mine will be in the form of a diagram like that.
Good.
I will turn that in tomorrow.
I'm going to make one of those. What do they call those little? Never mind. Forget it.
when we get it, when we end the weather report, I got a little story to tell you, Leo. It's kind of funny that it actually is in reference to this. You might get a kick out of it, but he's about to end, so I won't.
I don't know where Speed's at.
He's about to end, so I won't get into it now.
He's out wrestling raccoons today for some reason.
Well, when the weather report ends, I gotta go get some lunch.
Oh man, you gave up lunch for this gig?
I always give up lunch for this.
Wow, that's
Why do you think I
sacrifice.
head out
Man.
after this is done?
That shows commitment. I think everybody should hit the like button just because of Andrew's commitment.
So, has anybody ever seen the movie called Clock Stoppers? It's a Nickelodeon movie, an old one.
Clob Stoppers?
Clock Stoppers.
Oh, Clock Stoppers.
Nope.
I'm not quite sure. Don't get us a violation.
Don't play it.
It's just a trailer.
Yeah, if it's a trailer, there shouldn't be anything wrong with that. This had to have been like early 2000s Nickelodeon something.
Yeah.
It looks more like it should have been on Disney, but... I don't even remember seeing commercials for this.
Yeah, me neither. Time travel or time loop movies are really a thing here lately.
It was more that it was like speeding up your atoms to the closer to the speed of light, so then everything relative to you was slowed down. It was a movie. Then if you wore a watch while you're, I mean, at the end, it's a spoiler, while they're in a bubble of that time dilation, that they use the watch again to dilate even more to like nearly the speed of light. So they're like phasing through stuff and you're like see through.
Stephanie's trying to teach you a thing or two, Leo. About
what's that?
Time. Stephanie in the side chat is trying to teach you a thing or two about space time.
I think I'll keep going to the people with PhDs in the subject.
Yeah, I
who teach at MIT. I think I can trust them.
Hey, that was a great talk yesterday on Math Pigs. You like,
oh my god, it was
Matt,
so fucking great. Matt is so awesome. My god, that guy.
He is. He's a great kid.
Mm-hmm.
He's going somewhere. Hopefully, he will accomplish. Something great. You know,
I'm not going to say his last name because obviously I'm not going to dox him. But he's from Physically Debunked is one of his channels, and then Shots and Quark is another one.
Physically,
I can actually link both of his channels. Give me a second here.
Yeah.
Before we take this off.
Actually, I should have looked it up myself because I think I'm subscribed to his channel. As a matter of fact,
I'm subscribed to both.
I forgot. Yeah.
Let's get this in the YouTube chat.
So, yeah, he's new, and like I said, he's had some long talks with James Fodor. So those two guys, get those two together, and they're pretty good.
Yeah, they had a discussion on fine tuning. I think a week ago or something. That was a good discussion. And that's the thing I like about Matt is he's pretty, because his bachelor's he got it at Oxford in physics and philosophy. And I have heard that Oxford, even with like a lot of science stuff, and especially with physics, you do quite a bit of like philosophy of science and philosophy of physics stuff along with it, not just the science. So that's good that he understands the science, but he also understands a lot of the philosophy that underlies it. And that I think really helps with, addressing a lot of, being a counter apologist and addressing and objecting to theistic arguments.
Yeah. He was trying to choke down on Tangelo's arguments. That was kind of funny.
Oh my god, yeah, and how he just kept cutting him down on the fine tuning, I'm sorry, this is just not.
Boy, I thought Montangelo was being an ass, huh? I mean,
I don't think he was being too bad.
I mean, no, I don't know. A couple of times I thought he went way overboard. He was acting like an asshole to me. Hey, I know Montangelo. I've seen him a zillion times, and I thought that. I thought he was. But when he cried when he wanted to leave, when he was crying, "Oh, I want moderation, or I'm going to leave." That was ridiculous.
He's pulling a Darth.
That's part of his asshole lessons from Darth.
Yeah, exactly.
The thing you noticed, if you remember, David, is that every time, so like Otangelo would go and he'd, do his usual stick, go for a couple minutes, and then Matt would jump in like, "No, I'm sorry," give his rebuttal, But when Otangelo tried to do that with Matt just kept going, like, was like, no, let me finish what I'm saying. Because the reason for this is Matt was looking at this more of, and this certainly is the right way to look at it, as no, I need to educate you rather than have a discussion with you. I mean, we are having a discussion, but I'm trying to educate you, so I speak, you listen, kind of thing. And I was just loving every minute of it. He'd say, he'd start, I get a little smirk because I'm just like, yes.
Oh yeah. And then
somebody that knows how to handle Otangelo.
His double standards, how he's, well, you have to provide me with an answer of all of these things, but I don't have to provide you with any answers.
Yes, I pinned him down on that off the bat. Wait, Otangelo, you just said, because Matt asked him, so what does God, how does God actually explain this or something like that? And Otangelo's like, well, we don't really need to know how God, explains certain whatever it was. And I was just like, well, wait, didn't you just say that our explanations aren't good because they don't actually explain anything? And now you're saying, well, we don't need to explain how God did. Why the double standard?
Yeah,
and he gets really irritated. Yeah, he gets really irritated when you start pressing him on that stuff.
Yeah,
because he's very, and he's always saying, "You have to explain. You have to explain."
Right. Yeah, he got irritated, and you were being really good to him, Leo. I mean, you weren't really pressing him that hard, and he got pissed off at you. And he's, you're interrupting me, Leo, and I don't like it. And and he does the same thing. So that's why I thought you weren't pressing him hard at all. You've been 10 times, worse than what you did yesterday. And he just cried about it, So that's why I thought he was kind of being an ass.
Oh yeah, in that respect, that's kind of just a bit of this Ponzi behavior, the douchey behavior. That's just kind of that's being an ass.
Yep. So, but you got to give everybody some credit. He goes into these streams and has a lot of conversations, and that's what
I do. Like. I give him big time credit for that.
You did, and so did everybody else, and he gets that all the time. People tell him that all the time. So, so he should.
It's just a shame. It's a shame that we don't have more of them doing it. It's such a shame.
Right.
Whenever I go on to a channel where he's on the stream, I just post warnings that you need to check all his sources because he's not a reliable user of source material.
Yeah, that's true. But see, the thing is, when I look at Otangelo do what he does, I truly feel like this guy actually genuinely believes these things, and I think that he genuinely believes that he's got good arguments, and that's why he's, I would say, rather eager to go into rooms with atheists and discuss with them. When you look at other people like Quantum John and everybody else that don't actually go into other people's rooms to discuss these, they don't go into the lion's den, so to speak. To me, it just comes off as I don't think they think that they have strong enough arguments to do so. And that's why they don't do it. They think they'd get chewed the fuck up. And the thing is, I would argue, at least to an extent, Otangelo does get chewed the fuck up. But the fact that he goes in and continues to tells me that he thinks, in Otangelo's mind, he's got good arguments and he's got a good defense for them.
Exactly.
I don't see that from the other ones because they don't have that behavior. Like, I've got good arguments and I'm about to go use them and we'll put them to the test. They don't do that.
And that's why John, look at Quantum John. He's got, all he'll do is intelligent agent. He will not make the leap to the, to the Christian God or anything like that. He just sticks to that.
And he doesn't really like to discuss things other than, genetic encoding. That's about him. And trying to do nothing but draw the analogies.
End it, Speed. End it. Go ahead.
I don't know why he just doesn't end it. Just cut people off. Sopranos, this motherfucker.
Push the button.
Stay curious.
Okay, goodbye, cruel world. There we go. Jay told me to use cow sounds. So
we're still live.
I think that what?
The live ticker is still going.
The live thing's on.
God, what the fuck?
All right, folks. Cut round 2. Here we go.
Round 2. Let's go. We're going to try that.